Hello, welcome back to the Reaper blog. Today we are joined again by Joel Schwartz. If you missed our previous conversation, I'll have a link down below to where we talked about the basics of media composition. And in this one, we're going deeper into some advanced workflow stuff from his own experience working on television shows. You can find Joel online at filmguitars.com. Welcome, Joel.
Thank you, John. Great to be back. This was super fun to do. I've just been in this admittedly, very nerdy phase with Reaper. I mean, it's always a bit nerdy, but it's been especially nerdy. And it's kind of fun to see comments from other fellow nerds, the questions from people who are really advanced, but also kind of beginning, and the whole range. Is cool to get the discussion going. So Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, we got a really good response from the last video, so we're doing it again. Well, we already planned on doing a second video, but
that's true.
Now I think we have a bit more energy going towards that. So
yes,
yeah, I know that people are going to like it. So where do we start with this one?
Basically, again, I want to circle back to this concept, which is fundamentally the most important concept for me, which is this studio as an integrated system for creativity. I'm not in this to be a vibe coder or a tinkerer with Reaper. I'm doing this because I love composing, I love producing. I want it to be very smooth when I have a client here or I'm working on a film or something. So that's the entire goal. Because I'm saying that because we are going to get into some very nerdy in the weed stuff, and I feel like in the last 3 or 4 months I've taken Reaper to these kind of extremes, and I'm sure there's other people doing really cool stuff, but I feel so excited about where I came to with this. So there's two things with this. One is the potentially controversial aspect is I'm not a programmer at all. I don't understand code really beyond HTML. So this is deeply vibe coded. There's a lot of AI. There's no AI in the creative part. It's everything works without AI, but in the creation of this, there was a lot of AI.
I'm okay with it. There are times when something wouldn't exist without an AI tool to help you. We're solving a problem and we're using any of the resources available where we need this problem resolved right away. And so AI for coding tends to work pretty well for that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's an important discussion to consider, and I know what I love about Reaper is it's kind of my feeling from the community. It's kind of anti-AI in a way, and I support that. We don't want AI in Reaper in terms of creation. I don't want that. I'm not interested. But this is a bit of a different thing in terms of it's all about workflow. So there's that.
Yeah, taking away a lot of the busy work, I imagine, of getting stuff ready to go into the project.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I have used AI tools to generate scripts or workflows for I just cannot remember the FFmpeg code that I need on a regular basis, right? To convert files into different formats that are easy to import and stuff like that. So I could read it 1,000 times, and then the next time I need it, I'm not going to remember it. So I can build a tool with, within 30 seconds with ChatGPT or whatever, and it works forever.
And just the fact that Reaper accepts scripts so readily, it's really incredible. I think other DAWs are doing workarounds like Keyboard Maestro, and there's other third-party tools, right? That you can kind of get around that, but not in such a deep way as Reaper, as far as I know, and it's mind-blowing for me.
Yeah, I don't think anything else comes close.
Yeah. I guess the last thing that we should say is, Christian Henson from Crow Hill gave us a shout out, and that was cool of him. And so hi, Christian. I hope these have been useful, and thanks for the shout out.
Yeah.
So some of the stuff that we're going to be doing here, it extends a little bit outside of Reaper specifically, but it's all going to be integrated. When I'm starting a project, a new film or television series, there's a ton of admin as far as like folder creation. There's local folders that have to exist on my hard drive. There's Dropbox folders. There's, if I'm working with a team, which is often like there's another composer or a music editor, etc. There's a calendar. There's a spotting sheet that has to be created, which I've in the past worked with QDB, which a lot of composers will know. There's project management. There's all these things that is like a half-day setup. So let me show you what this script does and how it kind of integrates. Okay, before I say this, this is going to seem like a lot to anybody watching. This is going to really seem like a lot, but this was all done like one step at a time. I did this during a playback, a series of playbacks for, which is like when the composer and the whole team goes to watch the show or the film. So I had 4 in a row. They were really, really long days, and I was only useful for about 20 minutes or so a day on these playbacks. The rest of the time of those 10 hours, I was vibe coding this thing. So this is going to seem insane, but I will say to anybody interested in doing this, I started gently and one step at a time. So back to this. So where this starts is it's with a form, and it's reminding me to start a local Python server that's going to connect and basically the internet to all the things on my computer and everything. And so I won't go into the details here, but let's call it the Reaper blog series. And it's going to ask me for an abbreviation. So we'll call it the Reaper blog. Okay, TRBS. And then it's season number. So this will be our first season, John. And let's say there are 5 episodes. Okay, so do we need a Google Calendar? Of course we do. We want a shared Google Calendar. Do we want a Nifty project? This is the project management software I use. So yes, let's do that. So we have a place to chat and work on all our things. This part is selecting team members. We'll leave this off for now. Okay, so the first thing that comes up is, this is from my local drive, and it's asking me which scoring template to begin with. So I will start with this one because I've removed all the plugins and it'll load quickly rather than like the 3-minute load it usually is. And so the thing that it creates now, this is on my local project. This is TRBS, the Reaper blog series 101. So that means we're season 1, episode 1, season 1, 102, season 1, episode 2. And in this first folder, there are 2 subfolders. One is my template. Basically, before I start a project like this, I'm going to spend some time getting the sound, spend a lot of time getting the sound. So I'm going to do that in this template. The other folder is a video folder. So we'll get back to that. The things it creates now in the background, it created this Google Drive with the Reaper blog series and this spotting sheet. We'll get back to this here. It created our the Reaper blog series on Nifty. And then please blur this one out. This is my calendar, the Reaper blog series calendar. And the last thing it created is the Dropbox. And the Dropbox has, like, for me, I have, very specific, TRBS 101. It has on each of these, it has a bunch of very specific subfolders that I have to do every time. And this takes a bunch of time. So I know we're a little outside of Reaper, but the point is here, having this local Python server allows you to do all this. Okay, so back to Reaper. Let's go into our template. You can open that up. Say we're done all our template and the aesthetic stuff. We're going to now connect this to, where is it here? We're going to connect this to this spotting sheet, and I'll show you why in a second. So I'll copy this link. What happens here, I press a button on my Stream Deck, set season sheet path. So it asks me for a Google Sheet ID, and I paste that in, and it says, okay, great, we're connected.
Do you want to show the workflow in the Stream Deck?
Okay, I press this one, top right, set season sheet path.
Okay. Oh, this is all connected through OSC.
That's right. And so it saves it as part of this, specific to this project. It is saving that path, that Google Sheet path. So now when we go to our, we have our spotting session. You know what? I have some I have some temp data I'll bring in here. So in a spotting session, you're going through with the director or the showrunner, and they're going through, and we're talking about all the places where music could exist, right? When you've gone through this process with your showrunner, the first thing I want to do is bring all this information into my session so I can see it. So let me do that. So the next step is for me opening the video file. Here's another script that's really useful. I can bring up my Stream Deck thing again, if that's helpful. So I have this one script that imports a video and aligns it and explodes the video from the audio. So let me show you how that works. So I'm going to press the button here, and I'm going to pick something random. So this is how we usually get video, is with the left and right are mono channels, of course, and the left side will contain dialogue and the right will be temp. And so what we need to do is separate those two things so we can have individual control over the volume of dialogue and temp. And we need to align the video to 1 hour exactly to the frame. Right? So that's what this script does. So it's going to import the script into my video assembly, and it's going to align it exactly based on the 2 beep, which is present in, which is what this script relies on, is a 2 beep, and it is frame accurate. So the video I can show you now, like I'm halfway through 1:27:19:03, and you can see that's where we're at here. So that's very useful. That's like a 3-minute job, where you have to do that every single time. So let me now connect. I think I've already done this, but just to make sure on this one, I'm going to connect this project to the spotting sheet, and then I'm going to import the cues. And then we can go back and look at these scripts if it's helpful. So I'm now clicked a button. It's going to start this server, this local Python server, which connects to Google Sheets, that exact sheet, and is going to download all the spotting data. There we go. Okay. So now we've downloaded all those cues that are in the spotting sheet, and that can update easily. So that is something I was previously doing by downloading a CSV, or even before that, manually creating these regions from the spotting sheet. So that's like a lot of labor doing that.
Yeah, I've had to do that once, and making regions from a list, it's not something you want to do twice.
It's not something you want to do twice. And like you imagine, for one episode, you can easily have 20 cues more. And so you're creating all these regions, right? And that is not fun to do when you just want to write music.
Does the Reaper session then update the spreadsheet if you made a change there?
Exactly. So if we go to, let's say we're done our template now and we want to do our first cue. So our first cue is 1mo1, okay? So we're going to go 1mo1, create a subdirectory for this. And I'll create a region here. Let's say, I don't know, this is 3 minutes. Let's just say it's whatever, a little smaller. So I'm going to put my start and end markers here. Before I even render it or anything like that, I can update the spotting sheet. It's going to ask me for the key, and this is for metadata. Let's say it's in F. There's actually nothing on here right now. It's going to restart that Python server, and we'll give it one moment, and it's updated 1mo1. So we go back to Reaper and said, okay, the title has been updated to Untitled Project. the TC in and out has changed, and the key is there, and it's grabbed the BPM.
Mm-hmm. And so that untitled project is actually because it's not written into the project settings page.
Yeah. Let's call it John's theme, right? And so if I update it again, I think I have to hold on. I have to shut this server down. I think. Let's see. I might need to do that one more time.
But this isn't something you're doing every time you update. It's probably at the end of the day, or
when you're done, like when you're about to render the queue, then that's when I do it. So let's see. So there's John's theme, and that's been updated. So you're not doing this every 2 seconds, but when you do it is like this could easily be attached to a render script, for example. When I render this music, then that would be the time when I'd want, and uploading to Dropbox, that's when I'd want to be uploading the spotting sheet.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, and you can set that up easily, just like just link it, just make a custom action with the render command plus that script. And I do the same thing for getting a sound effect when the render runs or render completes. So
oh yeah, right. That's smart. Yeah, right. It's essentially the same thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and having this, like when you're in the midst of a show, and having this updated with the correct metadata and the correct time code and versioning. So let me show you that as well. So this is a really simple thing. So when I go save as new version in Reaper, Control-Alt-Shift-S for me on PC, it's going to put a .1 here, right? And so when I do this, update the spotting sheet again, it will now update this column here in the version number, so that our music editor is always, it's just another confirmation that it's always going to have the correct version. So there it came in. And so if I rendered it as, I did as new version .2, then it would render or update here as well.
I could imagine you just want to compose.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, you don't want to have to go through a list of all these things that you've changed and update a spreadsheet, like, or be distracted during the day to make those changes.
It's very creative work, but it's also very precise work. And in particular, when you're working on a team, the precision, and when you're working with a showrunner who has a demand instantly, you need to be precise with your work. So theoretically, like this could be improved by, when I render it, I could change the status to compose, say, or, there's lots of ways that people smarter than me can expand something like this.
Should we show the scripts first, or?
Sure. Yeah. Let's see. Which one is it? Set template path. Here it is. I don't know how this all works. Like really, I'm looking at this and it's about, it's Greek to me. I mean, somebody who knows coding will be able to understand this precisely what's happening. I'll show you this other one, the update the spotting sheet. This one might be a little longer because it's more involved in it. Probably, sure. If you don't mind blurring some of this stuff out, because I think it has some keys and stuff. What this is smart in doing is it will grab the path of this one. So it's 1MO1 is the project name, but the local path, it's in that TRB, whatever the folder. So that's how it knows to go to this 101 folder. It's based on the local path that it's in. Okay. It's kind of clever that it's like, it all has to work together, but that's how it picks this particular sheet, say, rather than this one.
Right. And I'm sure that the next version of this is to update every 5 minutes automatically.
Right. That would be another. Right. That could, I don't know. I like to have the control, a certain amount of control. When it's too automated, you can get into trouble. Right. But ultimately what is on the spotting sheet needs to reflect what's in Dropbox. Mm-hmm. So maybe let's do that now. So I have a script here, and I don't know if we've talked about it last time, but what it does is it outputs my stems with the exact kind of naming that I want, and it only renders the stems that have audio being sent to it. So in this case, I just did this OB6 thing, and there's nothing in it really, right? There's no even plugin on it because I've removed it, but this is being sent to the C stem. So I just, that's a Stream Deck command I have, just send to C, this track. And so what this rendering script does is render within the time selection, it'll do the master and any stems here that have audio being sent to them. So in this case, it's only C. So if we open up the queue, we have it named exactly how I want the folder. And this is WhenMO1.1 C, which is that stem, John theme, JS is my initial, and then the exact time code. So it's also a broadcast media file, but it's useful to have the time code there in case somehow that gets stripped. So now I'll take this and we'll go to Reaper, we'll find Dropbox, and we'll find our TRBS. And I put this in incoming queues 101. I'm going to paste that in there. Okay, and so this was a question on the other one quite a bit. It's like, how do we then bring queues into here? So I have an assembly script. And what that does is we basically set a path for where the Dropbox is. And you select any, I'm back in incoming queues 101, and I select any of these files, and then it knows that's our path for 101. So it's now brought that in here.
Mm-hmm. And brought in the master track?
That's just brought in the master track. For this, that's really all I need. So from here, I can easily send a video, because it's all here.
But I think you said last time you very rarely need to send a video of anything, right?
Usually, so in my experience, usually the music editor is doing this work. Mm-hmm. But there are definitely times when I'll send a video, right? Okay. And it's so easy for me to, you just say, I'll select this region, for example. And this does not correspond exactly, but because I haven't updated this one, so I can do that actually. This one. So when I import these regions again from that Google spotting sheet, if all goes according to plan here, it will update the lengths of these regions to match. There you go. So it's matching this one.
Oh, I see.
Right.
That's cool.
I can then easily render that out. I'm being a little facetious here, but the beauty of when you get a system is it allows me to be kind of dumb. I don't have to think about every single it's like when you're driving a car or, I don't need to know how everything in the car works. I just need to, get to the school to pick up my kids, or I just need to go grocery shopping, and I don't need to know that, how to do anything. And that's a little bit of my relationship with this. Other people will certainly have a different relationship than that, but as long as it works, I'm happy.
Right. I'm the same way for all the keyboard shortcuts and scripts that I build. Once I get them into the workflow, I forget what they're even called. Totally. I just press the button and move on. Totally. So it takes a lot of mental load off once you have the system built, and you can kind of rely on these things because they go step by step and they take care of each other. And so not having to manually trim the regions, not having to name things manually, it's it all saves time and effort.
100%. Some of these workflows are very directed for screen composing, right? And I think, and not only screen composing, but I would say professional screen composing, where you're using a spotting sheet and you're having to maybe work with a team and connect in that way. So it's not going to be for everyone, but I think some of the broad concepts for people, if they were interested in kind of creating their own system, is the local Python connect. It opens up huge possibilities for Reaper, because then Reaper can now talk to your computer and it can talk to the internet, and so that becomes scary and wonderful and powerful and all the things.
Like if I was coming into this without kind of the background and experience in doing this already, a lot of the details that you get into, I would never have thought about. And like, just in terms of documenting everything, metadata, the standard way things are named and when they're versioned, like I would ignore all of that
Right.
to my detriment and like get kicked off the team.
I'm
like,
sure that's not true.
But like there's so many like little details that are important when you're on a team in a professional environment. When it's two people making a film, it's a little different than 50.
Sure. Or yeah, I mean not 50, but there's post-production mixers. There's all these people. And also part of it, and I'll show you this next step here. I don't know if I've rendered this. I'll make another version here. I will update our spotting sheet. Okay. And I'm going to render this new version. I'm going to show you something else that's cool with the assembly script. I'm asking Reaper to do a bunch of things here. Let's see what happens. Reaper didn't get mad at me. That's good. Okay, so we've rendered our latest version of the John theme. We'll bring it into Dropbox. So this I still do manually. I like doing it manually. Just there's some checks I like to do, and this is one of them. So this is our previous queue, right? The .1 and this .2 is our latest. So I bring .1 into the archive, and I go back to my assembly, and we see that this is offline because it's no longer talking to it on Dropbox, right? And I hit assembly. Yes, that's the folder TRBS 101, and there's only one. Continue anyway. So what it's done now is it's taken this old version and put it down there into the archive. And so say I have 4 different versions of this queue, it will actually create a playlist or that's not Reaper terminology, sorry. It'll create the takes.
Paste it in as a new take in the
as a new take.
Item.
So
yeah.
If I have 4 versions of this, and for some reason the latest version that was approved is not working, and I need to quickly go back and say, hey, I thought actually this version worked. We can be like, oh yeah, that version works great. And we can preview it. This whole archival process that's, I think, super valuable when, when you have a metaphorical gun to your head and, everybody's like, Joel, why isn't this working? Let's find something that works. So it's like, well, here's a ton of options. Because sometimes a queue will go through an evolution, not always, but sometimes.
It's much easier to go through the takes within the project than to dig through the file system to find that thing that you emailed or whatever, right?
Like people who aren't tech savvy in a professional environment, they just want what they want and they want it right then. They have no patience for like, oh, you mean you got to open up a new Reaper project? That's going to take like 5 minutes because you have 300 tracks in your template, or you have to search through Dropbox and find it. But if you can answer the questions like right away, it's very valuable. So part of this has been thinking through my entire creative process step by step. Again, on those like 12-hour days where I was doing very little, I was thinking, where is there creative friction for me? Anytime there's creative friction, I would note it and be like, can code solve this? Is there something I can do to solve this? And again, like that is why Reaper is so incredibly, incredibly powerful. And part of the series that I think I really want to convey to the world, not just our Reaper community, is screen composers are the perfect candidate for using Reaper. And I just don't see a ton of information out there. There isn't a ton of people, film composers, who are using Reaper, and just considering the nerdiness of a lot of film composers, and I would say like the workflow needs of a lot of film are quite mighty. You have to do so many things that you might not have to do if you're like a bedroom producer or something. Like when you're comparing DAWs, it's like, okay, yeah, they all sound the same. Which one do you want? But when you're getting to this kind of level of advanced workflow stuff, like Reaper is on another level completely.
Yeah, I think if you can convince someone that they don't need to manually edit a CSV file ever in their their life,
Right.
by switching to Reaper,
Right.
that might be enough.
That might be enough. One thing we were talking about too, John, that I think is really great in a very recent version of Reaper is these the lanes for markers.
Yeah, the multiple marker and region lanes.
Yeah, I don't even have this set up for this project, but I could show it really easily. I'll just make a new lane, and let's say I'll call it time, and it'll just be based on time. And so there's a new lane here now and called time. And so this is, we are in my, I'll bring up video. I think this episode is already aired, so I'm going to say it's fine. Okay, so let's say we're at this point in the show, right? And I want, so I was flipping to the video tab there, right? This is usually on another huge monitor above my head. So as we flip through, again, I want to show this. I showed this on the last video, but these are connected through these, this setting here: run projects, background projects, run stop background projects, play stop background projects, synchronize, and display video from background. All those are enabled. So that allows me to see video from a different tab, and the two are just automatically connected. They play at the exact same rate.
Yeah.
There's no SMPTE connect or anything. So if I say, okay, on this scene, I want it to start exactly, when it shows her face, a bit of a CU, a close up on her face. So I'll drop a marker here, right? I'll say, okay, that's the, am I in the time ruler? No, I'm not.
No, just drag it down.
Time, there you go. So let's say this is, a new tempo here. Let's say it's 120. Okay, and we want the downbeat to start exactly here. Then, oops, I have to do a couple other settings here. Partial and the time signature. So I can go and drag this so the click is now starting right exactly here. Ish. I can be very granular to the frame if I want to. Mm-hmm. And then my click track is here. Then I have 2 bars count in for that to begin right there. Whether that's a good place to start, I don't know. This is irrespective of this actual scene, but that's a handy. This lane ruler thing has been really awesome, because then you can have other markers that are related to beats. Say, so this would be more related to the music. All right, I might actually just call this music. So this would be for musical markers. Then I could have a third for rendering stuff, or I'd be curious how you're using yours. Really cool new feature.
Each one of those lanes can be selected to lock, so you can't accidentally drag them to a different location, or you can't edit, you can't insert.
Show me how to do that. You can lock a lane. Ruler manager?
Yeah, and there's just a lock column there beside the default.
Oh, great. Yeah, so we might, for example, if I had a render, like say we, just for fun, say we called this one render, right? And we put I'll lock it, and we put our render paths here.
If it's locked, it will prevent you from making a region.
Oh, I see. So now I can't even move these guys up here. Right.
They did fix that you can now navigate to the markers. You're on 765, so that's not in there yet, but 771, you can click on a marker and it will move your cursor correctly. But a little bug there that's in your current version. But
oh, I see. Okay. Well, I usually wait a couple weeks anyways to update.
So what I imagine is like your start and end markers are probably not going to be moved too often for a queue once they're set, and you can lock that, but then you're free to move things with ripple edits and things of the music without moving those markers, or the insert time or insert and delete remove time, leaving empty area. You know that action.
Right. Yes. That's what I use this all the time. Like, so, and we can talk a little bit more about this. So let's say this is where I've said, I think the cue should start. Where did I say? Here, right? So we'll just call this, oops. I'll say, usually call this internally. So this is where the cue is coming in, right? So what I might do is, if the showrunner's like, you know what, this is good, but I actually want to start it, you know, a little, can we push that a little later? So what I would often do is before this time signature tempo marker here, or the, you know, this thing here, I'll say, okay, yeah, we can totally move this like 5 frames, 8 frames, you know, 11 frames. So I do the insert, empty space and selection. That's going to move everything to the right. So now our cue is starting, you know, 5, whatever I put in.
I recommend the insert key on your keyboard for that
function. Oh yeah, I never use that.
that's where I move mine.
For putting those in, this is like, yeah, it's set to something else.
Okay.
But that's good. Yeah, because you use it so often, I guess.
And Control Shift X for removing time. That's what I do.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, and then same thing in reverse. If they're like, you are starting way too late, then I'll make a little selection and go remove content of selection, moving later items.
Yeah.
So again, and I think we've talked about there's some other workflows that, you know, might work differently here in newer versions of Reaper, but having the music agnostic of the video just allows me to freely do this. And it's not affecting video at all. So I can be in this queue and then bring up another queue and the video hasn't been affected. The video's still there. Yeah, really, really incredible workflow stuff here. Then some of these small things like the markers and the separating the video and the audio have been just huge improvements in the last 6 months for me. And then, you know, the bigger thing, which is having this Python server and like updating the spotting sheet and downloading from the spotting sheet feels like, holy shit, like this is really next level.
Nice. So we had a question about the reverb and delay sends and how you would assign those to groups A and B to create your stems, or if you even do.
Yeah, so for me, the way I score is I might have, I always have discrete reverb. So if you'll see, like, this is just the top of my project. So I have my acoustic guitars first. That's how I have it set up. So this is one, AC space sum. So underneath here is my recording tracks, right? And then it's being sent to, I usually have a bunch of plugins here, well, a few plugins, and it's being sent to a reverb and delay. And then this is the track that's being sent to the stem.
So, okay, so the folder track of the sum of your dry plus wet guitars, that's the one that gets sent to, let's say, the
A stem.
Group A,
yeah.
Okay.
And that's because, like, I might want a very different, like 3 or 4 different acoustic guitar sounds that, you know, I don't want necessarily the mixer to have control over. Like if I send them like a stem and they bring it way down and it entirely changes the character of the music, right? I don't want them, they can turn it up and down and whatever, but I want the guitar to sound, say, how I want the guitar to sound, and often discrete. So you might have something that's really verbed out and then something that's more forward. So I do discrete reverbs for everything, and they're sent.
Yeah, and I think that's where it differs from kind of general studio music production, like without a template, or if you have a template, it's like you might have 4 or 5 reverbs that are shared across the entire project, and you don't necessarily make stems. Or if you do make stems, you're soloing the tracks so that the reverbs come through individually.
That makes sense. I've never really worked that way because when I'm recording, or producing, I'm never trying to create something that's like, oh, I want this to sound like it's a band playing in a hall and everybody to sound like cohesive in that way. It's like, no, guitar is like way out here and it has its own special reverb, and like this is way out here, and I personally like them to be discrete. Just for me, the result is I have a ton of like reverb and delay plugins, as you can see.
Yeah, I mean, not a big deal if they're not used. They're not really just being in the project, and it doesn't necessarily take up a lot more CPU. But yeah, it is a different way of setting up a template than what, say, I showed in my mixing videos, where I've got, my 3 favorite short, medium, long reverb, 2 delays, 1 special effect that I will try from, whatever needs to stand out. I might have a widener, and all these things are in parallel with the different groups, the drum group, the bass group, whatever. Yeah. And so they all meet together at the master track, and I never make stems. It makes sense the way that you have this set up, and yeah, there's just the overhead of having lots of reverb and delays for each group.
As long as your computer can handle it, I guess. Yeah. But the way you're talking about really makes sense too. It's funny, like mixing for film and TV is so different than music production mixing, right? Because music production, there is a bit of a like, let's make this huge, right? Whereas in film, TV, we want like tons of headroom and atmosphere and room for dialogue and Foley and everything else. So the intention is really different. But I will say, and that took me a while to get used to, because my background is more in like as a music producer and mixer, where I'm doing songs. So that took me a while to get used to, where there's no like 2-bus, and instead, like on these stems, I usually there's like a mastering chain effectively on each of these stems, mastering chain, sort of mixing chain, right? But I will say, like, that has really improved my mixes in my music production world, because I still use a similar-ish setup where I have stems, and I'm like, oh yeah, having like a little bit of saturation or compression or EQ on these, just a little bit on this kind of high level thing before it hits my music. This is for me, this is my 2-bus. I have nothing on my master track and Reaper. So everything hits here. And then, when I'm producing, I might do something like this too, is where I might have like a music folder, say, and then a parallel channel here. Parallel. And I might put like a decapitator on there, or put a harder comp, and it's coming in parallel before hitting here. But I found, the two worlds have informed me and made me a better, cleaner mixer, I would say, overall. It's kind of cool that way. It took me a while to get used to the film mixing, to be honest, because I was like, I want this to sound glued and, in this particular way.
Right. And it's hard to produce stems for someone else to mix while everything is glued and so delicately connected, kind of.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. You did mention headroom, and we did have a question about that. This is probably somewhat deferred to the actual dub mixer, maybe it would be called.
That's right.
Yeah, so I would love to hear how you work to hit the desired LUFS levels. Do you set compressor limiter to hit minus 24 dB or minus 27 dB required, or is there another way?
So this was maybe a question from like a post-production mixer or somebody who's aspiring to be. So it's a little bit out of scope for me, but my understanding is broadcasters such as, Canadian broadcasters, CTV, CW in the States, and Netflix are some of the broadcasters I've worked a lot with. And I've been, in the room when they're doing this, and it is somewhere around that 24, but each broadcaster will have their own requirements, right? And I think they do their best to kind of find one thing that they're doing. I think it is minus 24 LUFS. I don't do that for my score. To answer the question, I don't know exactly. I think it's minus 24 for a lot of these North American broadcasters.
And that's integrated across the entire episode.
Yeah, there's going to be like a chase scene or an action scene that's going to like blast through that, right? But we're going to, as a general thing, that's they have targets. But it brings up an interesting thing that, I don't know the answer to, and I've talked to some friends about this, which is like, well, how loud should I deliver my cues? Like, isn't more better? I have dialogue, and I have, like I showed this last time, I generally have quite a few plugins on here to kind of clean it up. Like I have something that isolates the dialogue and, some EQ, fast compressor, DS, and a limiter. So my dialogue ends up being, even though it's like shitty camera audio, it ends up being pretty clean. So I just compose to that being relatively just at 0. I don't change the volume. I try to compose my cue to that. But I know there are some people who are like, okay, yeah, that's where you've composed it to, but why not use the full resolution and the mixers can then just turn it down? For the stuff that I produce and compose, it's like that doesn't feel right to do when I'm like cranking these atmospheric, intimate kind of scoring cues like really loud and then they're pulling it down. It doesn't feel right, but I know some people are like, let's use every bit that we can. This starts getting above my pay grade, admittedly. I'm like, I don't know. I just write it and mix it to make it sound good with dialogue, and it seems to work.
Yeah, I think the composer doesn't necessarily need to know how it's mixed in the end. As long as it can sound good, you're not delivering it clipped.
Yeah.
I've always found that having sort of a calibrated monitoring setup is very important. You want to have headroom at the end and mix it so it sounds loud. Basically, you pick a low level like -12 and make your speakers loud at -12 dBFS, and then you're never going to go exceed that because it will hurt you physically.
Right.
So that's an easy way to get a more dynamic mix, because like those short transients may go above that. But like if your compressed bass guitar is at -12, you're not going to significantly exceed that by every other instrument. So
yeah,
that's always helped for me. And before a day of mixing, I will put on a pink noise at -12, and I will set my monitoring volume, and I'll check on my iPhone, just sort of the decibel level. I might say 75 dB equals -12 in the DAW. Mm-hmm. That gives me lots of headroom. And cool. you just only have to worry about like, oh, you got a Discord ping. That's
oh, right.
That's really gonna be loud. So
that's true. I've had that. I know what you mean. Yeah, right. Well, that's great. That's a really good tip, and that's probably part of your mixing course too. Yeah.
Well, it's like you could pick any of the numbers.
Right.
Just do it the same thing every time.
Yeah.
So how you measure doesn't matter. What number you pick doesn't matter. Just do it the same every time, and you will make it work.
This is the part of like, this is a scientific way. Like, they say know your speakers, know your room is kind of the most valuable thing, right? And that feels like a scientific way to kind of get there even faster. Like, I do feel like after all these years in the studio, I know what to expect from these monitors. But what you're advocating for sounds really smart and something I should probably integrate.
If you don't have a monitor controller that has clicks for each decibel,
right,
find that level. Like I've had this auto interface for one day. I've already put a pencil mark of where I would like the volume to stay.
Oh yeah.
And I keep it at that, and I will just turn down like a YouTube video to like less than half. Right. I almost never need to turn something up all the way. And so I'm trying to go for like 75 dB or whatever the iPhone says is like 75 dB.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's loud enough, but it's not going to disturb my neighbors, and it's not going to hurt my ears.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I wanted to ask you about articulation managing systems, if you use any of those.
Well, I know there's like Reticulate.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it's called? Rearticulate?
I think that's been usurped by another.
Oh yeah,
which I can't even remember. It's from Jesper. Commented on the last video but I don't have all the details for that. So
I have done a ton of string writing, like a ton and ton and ton, but this is an area of growth for me where I need to have a bit of a better system. I don't have one of these giant orchestral templates with like every articulation parsed out because I usually am using strings in a pretty particular way. I am right now at this point and subject to change, but I am not like doing like orchestral scores where it's like that's the full brunt of I'm usually often more guitar forward, or there's synth, or there's other elements. I only use strings a lot, but I'm not like, okay, I'm gonna make this classical orchestral score.
right.
So if I did, I'd be like one of those guys with a Vienna Pro on server and that whole thing. I haven't got there. So when I'm, doing articulations, if I need something, I'm going into, going in and selecting it.
You're using a key switch, or are you using a separate instance of the plugin?
A separate instance of the plugins. Like I would want all my shorts, say, on one, and I would have my legato on another, and that's how I do it. Because I don't want to be like switching on the same, I might mix them differently. Like there's a million reasons why I'd want them on separate things.
I don't think there's a wrong answer, and Reaper has a lot of different articulation management scripts these days.
Right.
And they all have pros and cons. They all have a lot of setup for the user to build a system. Those are basically your two options. Like one, separate instance of the plugin for each articulation you want to use. Could be a little wasteful because each plugin, unless you purge all the old samples, all the other articulation samples that aren't being used, there's quite a bit of overhead with that. And then there's the one instance of the plugin, use an articulation manager to manage the key switches because it's annoying to put in a MIDI note at the lowest octave every time you want to change. Mm-hmm. So just having a button you can click, or MIDI controller or Stream Deck or whatever to change articulations for the currently selected instrument, and just write the music.
It totally makes sense. That is a big setup process, though, isn't it? Like doing all that. Yeah, and I'm into it. Like it's like. Let me ask you, John. Like, have you ever set up Reaper with two computers? So like,
no, I don't think so.
It's like a faux Vienna Ensemble. You know what I'm talking about when you say Vienna Ensemble Pro? It's like you have a server for your massive library, and you're connected via Ethernet.
I've dabbled with Reaper's thing. Remote, maybe? No. Yeah.
I think that's right.
Just as a tech demo of like how you set it up, but I never have a need for it. So I almost never max out a project for CPU and RAM.
Well, that's the thing. So, like, because Reaper is so efficient, it takes all, and with modern computers, but it would be cool. Like, that would be something that I'd be interested in trying someday is, having, say, a large orchestral template on another machine. If it was easy to set up, like kind of a la Vienna Pro Ensemble, but with two Reaper instances. And I don't know how exactly they're synced, if it's through
I just assume it sends MIDI. Like you send it MIDI and it spits out audio. That's how I always assumed that it works, with an interface that manages your library. There is some plugin, and I'm not going to remember what it's called. You could use plugins that are installed on a different computer and control the interface in real time. The whole gimmick is that it's actually like an OBS instance. It's like a screen capture. So you can directly move the mouse on the other computer, but if you like drag it, it will like show a different part of the screen. I remembered testing it on a live stream, and I accidentally moved it, and it just blew my mind. Like, oh wait, it was like OBS the whole time. It was just a screen recording that I was playing with. Right. But the audio routing was instant. I cannot remember the name of the plugin, but it was like a neat workaround.
Oh, that's cool.
And like such a novel approach to that problem is just like, do a screen share with remote control, and it worked.
That is neat. Yeah. I'm just wondering, like, given that Reaper is able to, like, have these two tabs stay in sync. Like, wouldn't it be awesome if you could somehow have like a remote third tab that is running off a remote computer somehow? And it's like, okay, this is where you're, like, you'd see it just like this. So you could, it's not just audio. I could, mess with the plugin, say.
Yeah.
And it like lives within, Reaper somehow. And it's, I don't know if what I'm asking is at all reasonable, but
if I was in that situation, it would be like a separate computer or a like workstation synth, and I'm just sending it 16 channels of MIDI, or more, or whatever it's capable of, and then I have MIDI tracks in Reaper, and then tracks set to probably monitor only,
right
on the template. But then that would require rendering in real time. There's lots of times I would think of setting up like VCV rack for modular synth stuff,
right,
and have all of that hooked up to Reaper, and lots of people have done it. That's sort of a thing where like this plugin or this app is really heavy, and it requires to get all these different signals through to actually mix it in a music production sense. You need lots and lots of virtual cables to do that.
Right.
And so running that on a separate computer, and you're just sort of maybe a network protocol to get everything through, or just, I don't know, 8 channels of audio would work too. That's how I would approach it.
That's cool. Yeah. There's 2 other scripts that I use pretty regularly that I thought, just as we close here, I'd mention just as concepts. And I can't really demo them really, really easily, but I can explain them really simply. And I think I showed one of them briefly in the previous video. But what I have been doing is, so composers receive notes in a variety of ways. Sometimes it's email, often it's frame.io. There's other platforms where you'll receive a timestamp and a note. And typically it's frame.io for me. And so I asked ChatGPT to create this script that basically I copy. I was just looking on Frame to see if the project is still open, but it's not. I was going to demo it, but basically I copy all the timestamp notes, and it creates note items for each of the comment on this timeline. So rather than flipping back and forth between frame.io, and I can see exactly where the note is and what it is, and it just shows up like as a note file on my timeline, like this. This is amazing, right? And so I'll see a ton of notes that are on one line here. So it's pretty useful to see, look, have I addressed everything? If once I address it, I can do that, for example.
Was that muting or?
I just mute it, Alt M.
I see.
I have it set too. So it's like, okay, that's been done. Got it. It's amazing. The other one, which this is an important part of being a composer, is you create cue sheets. And cue sheets are similar to spotting sheets. So it's kind of this type of information, but it's what we give to the PRO, which is like in Canada, it's SOCAN. In the States, there's BMI, CSAC, ASCAP, for example. And in order to get paid, you need to submit cue sheets, or the music editor does. So I have a script that imports the CSV of what the usually you get sent a PDF, or you can request a CSV as well, and it takes the CSV and creates regions with where the music editor is saying the music is in and out. So then I can compare it to the output. Like usually you get an MX, which is the music output, and you can say, okay, let's just say this is the cue sheet region that's being created. It's like, okay, this is about right on the start, but we're missing a few seconds here, so I can drag it to there, and then do that for all the cues, say, and make sure that these all line up correctly with the assembly, and then say, actually, music editor, there's a few small changes, and then it outputs as a CSV, and I say, here's what I found. or you got it exactly right, because you can visually see if it's right or wrong. So usually it's all right, other than it's like there might be something like this that's happened. It's like, oh, you went a little long there. So it's in the composer's favor. Let's back that one off so it's accurate, to hear. So just as a concept, I'm sorry I can't demo that very well right now, because it's, I don't know, I'd have to find a CSV cue sheet. It's somewhere. I don't want to waste your time, John. But as a concept, that's like, that's probably 10 minutes of vibe coding to get you there. And super, super useful, because otherwise you're literally looking at a spreadsheet and going like, okay, this is what it says. It goes here. Then you flip back to Reaper. You're like, okay, is that right? Let's put the cursor here. Okay, that's right at the beginning. You're doing this all manually, which what ends up happening is you just don't do it. And you get paid less.
Right. Cool.
Well, I'll say in closing, John, like I just, again, appreciate so much what you do for the community. And I think it's an incredibly exciting time for Reaper. And I hope this video helps people like just see some expansion opportunities, because there's so much you can do with this vibe coding stuff if people are into changing their workflows, particularly with this Python server doing local stuff, and with the net, it's crazy powerful. So thanks for having me on board and letting me have the nerdy rant, and I hope people dig it.
Awesome. Thank you all for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Follow me on Facebook and Blue Sky. Support the Reaper blog through Patreon, and visit reaper.blog for more tutorials.